Recording in progress.
It is 1 o'clock. I will call the regular board meeting to order for February the 6th, 2024. Board members present. Director Boston. Director Murray is excused and absent and excused. And all of our student officers are here. Now I'm going to ask Grace to lead us in our flag salute.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You have the agenda before you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda for February 6th, 2024? Regular board meeting?
All motion.
Moved by Director Foster and seconded by Director Evans. All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. That's one passing unanimously. We have 3 minutes to approve here. The first one is our special emergency meeting on January 14th. Yes, I'll do these individually. All those, need a motion to approve the emergency meeting on January 14th. Second. Moved by Director Evans, seconded by Director King. All in favor of approving the emergency meeting on January 14th. Minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And then we have another emergency meeting the next day on January 15th, so I'll entertain the motion for those minutes. Director Evans, seconded by Director Foster. All those in favor of approving the minutes for the emergency meeting on January 15th, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. And now finally to our regular meeting on January 16th. I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes. And Director Foster, seconded. All in favor of approving those minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All minutes unanimously. Superintendent's report.
Great, thank you. I sound so loud today.
I was actually just thinking like, ooh, our microphones sound good today.
I am going to hand it off to our student reps that are going to read in our donations today.
The Stanwood-Camano School District received the following donations: $1,462.32 in school rebates from Firefly Images for Stanwood Elementary School, $515.82. Cedar Home Elementary, $524.81, and Elder Bay Elementary School, $421.62.
$5,874.23 from Stanwood Booster Club to cover the transportation costs for a field trip to the Children's Museum, $289.44, and to help cover a portion of the cost of the outdoor education field trip for the 2022-2023 school year, $5,584.79.
$1,125.85 from the Stanwood Booster Club to use art supplies for the art cart at Stanwood Elementary School.
And $19,000 from the Washington State Evergreen Foundation to Stanwood High School to promote agricultural science in schools.
A donation of musical instruments from Carrie Jones in support of the Fort Station Middle School music program valued at $410.
Wonderful, thank you. We always appreciate our donations, whether they come from the state or from our local community, so thank you for that. We we are going to start off our first of 3 presentations today with Principal Lavender. She's going to give the board her annual report related to Stanwood Elementary School. Stacy.
All right, is my mic working? Maybe now. There are a couple of you I have not met. My name is Stacy Lavender. I'm the principal at Stanwood Elementary. And so I am here today to share with you what we are doing at our school as it relates to our annual action plan. And just share some details with you and give you a chance to ask some questions if you have any. So we begin our work with our annual action plan with our promise. And so our district's promise, every student in the Stanwood-Camano School District is empowered to learn in an inclusive setting and prepared for the future of their choice. And so as we begin this work with our school and our staff, and we really are talking about how we are improving the outcomes for all students. And that, of course, is the center of our work. The goals and measures, which are the same for the district, foundational early learning for every student, making sure they are getting off to a really strong start. Responsible, engaged, critical thinkers, helping them be good problem solvers and have the ability to think for themselves and make good decisions. And also giving them the tools they need to problem solve in academics as well. Continuous opportunity and growth and growth and achievement for every student. So regardless of their current level of understanding in any content area, that we are providing an opportunity for them to show high growth and making future ready graduates. So making sure they have the skills they need and the knowledge they need to go into middle school and high school and be ready to learn at higher levels. So these are just some highlights from our annual action plan. We have a math goal, we have a literacy goal, and we have a multi-tiered systems of support goal. So our math goal is that students will improve in their ability to understand and apply place value concepts across all areas of math. Because one of the things that we have discovered in looking at data and how students are responding in class is that they will understand place value in a given lesson, and then when we change concepts and we're asked to apply that understanding into a different concept in math, they're kind of falling off the rails a little bit there. And so that is our math goal. Our literacy goal is that students will improve in their ability to determine the meaning of general, academic, and domain-specific words or phrases in a text. So general academic words are like describe, explain, cite evidence, that kind of thing, that they're able to understand those words given when it shows up in different contexts. Domain-specific words are really around like science words like hypothesis or math words, equation versus expression, things like that. So understanding words that apply just in a specific content, and then understanding phrases in text. So really helping them decipher the text that's in front of them. Our multi-tiered systems of support goal is around students understanding their, recognizing, understanding, label, and expressing their emotions. Because what we're hoping is that the more that we teach them how to do that, to recognize how their body is feeling, how their emotions start to change in different situations, the better they will be able to regulate their own behavior, because it really starts with recognizing how you're feeling in different situations, and then we're teaching them how to respond in appropriate ways. So it started with prioritizing our time. So we spent a lot of time on our schedule this year, our building schedule. If you looked at our building schedule and put it up against our 3 goals, you would see them all represented in our schedule. We have 120 minutes of literacy in grades K through 3. That is a significant jump from previous years, and it coincides with our new literacy program suggestion for the amount of time they should be spending engaged in literacy, which is
reading and writing and speaking and listening. We have 90 minutes of literacy in grades 4 through 5, and that is because at the primary level in K3, students have more specific skills taught around like phonics and learning how to read, that type of thing. By the time they get to 4th and 5th, they have learned how to read and they're focused more on the comprehension and that kind of thing. We have 90 minutes in our building schedule for literacy or for math. And then for all grade levels, K through 5. And then for our multi-tiered systems of support, that's responding to students' individual needs. So we have 3 blocks in our master schedule. One is a math intervention block. All K-5 teachers have a math intervention block built into their daily schedule. All K-5 teachers have a literacy intervention block that is built into their daily schedule. And both of those blocks of time is when students can get instruction that is at their own level. So they might be getting instruction from our MTSS, our multi-tiered systems of support team, which is our intervention team. They might be getting support from the special education team, and they might be getting support from their classroom teacher in like a small group instruction within the classroom. It's a time when we have volunteers in the classroom that are doing some extra work with them as well. The other systems of support block of time in their schedule is around morning meetings. And so for the first 20 minutes in our school, nothing else is happening besides our morning meetings. And so all of the teachers in the school are engaged in these morning meetings with their students. And this is the time where we are teaching students how to recognize how they're feeling, how to name their emotions. We're doing some role playing and some problem solving. Things happen at recess. We're having some kind of more difficult conversations in these meetings and talking about ways that they can respond that are more in line with them being able to regulate their own behaviors and not having to need that support from an adult to help them problem solve through that. So giving them the skills that they need to socialize with their peers in age appropriate ways. So our progress monitoring plan, we chose one area to progress monitor in our AAP. We're actually collecting data on all 3 goals, but one of them we're reporting progress on in our AAP today. And that is the ability to improve in their understanding of place value concepts in math. And the reason why we chose that, literacy was getting a lot of attention this year with our literacy goal. And so we knew that was going to be taking the front stage on a lot of our work anyway. Place value in math is something that is foundational for all other areas of math and their ability to understand math at higher levels when they move on to middle school and high school. And we felt like it was an area where we were seeing our progress declining and not growing. And so that's why we chose that. So our progress monitoring plan is that we are collecting information from multiple places. So one of them is some web-based math interventions that we are using. We use a program that's called IXL. It's a web-based program where students can get in, take a diagnostic assessment every so often. It takes that information and creates reports for teachers that will show the skill areas that students are understanding well and the skill areas where students are struggling a little bit. It will help group our students based by skills, so that's helpful because we can use that during our intervention blocks. And it will provide extra practice for them and instructional practice on the computer so that students can do that independently as well. So we also use grade level place value assessments and number mats, and I'll show you an example of this in a later slide. But the idea is that in kindergarten through 5th grade, that we have teachers using these place value mats that are helping us understand students' flexibility with numbers. So I'll show you that here. So in our progress monitoring plan, this is what we're expecting to see. We're hoping to see an increase in students' ability to represent multi-digit numbers in multiple ways. And we're really focusing on this multiple ways, and the reason we do that is because we know that students' ability to understand math at a higher level is dependent on their flexibility in math. Not just memorizing a formula and knowing how to do the formula, but then not knowing how to apply it when they see it in a story problem, that kind of thing. Where we would see an increase in students' number and operations score. And so those are the scores. That's a graph that I'm going to show you here soon, is their where we currently are with number and operations. An increase in their ability to estimate and round numbers. That is a very important skill because it helps them understand the soundness of their answer. If they don't know how to estimate, they don't know how to round, they really don't know if their answer makes sense. And then an increase in a student's ability to understand the value of digits within multi-digit numbers. So understanding that 23 is 2 10s and 3 1s, like that. So this is just an overall graph of our literacy and math from IXL. And so this is not specific to place value. It's just one of the graphs that we get, and it just shows that in IXL, where the students are taking their diagnostic assessments, they're working at their own level, and where we're getting that information for our intervention blocks, you can see kind of the trend line going up. That is actually a decent trend line, but it's not steep enough, because in order for us to make the progress that we need to make in math, it needs to be much steeper than it is right now. Because we won't close the achievement gap like that, so it needs to take a sharper turn.
Can I clarify, that's this school year?
That is this school year,
Data for
that is
this
from,
school- okay.
that is from fall to last week.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes. This graph actually shows, this is number and operations. So this is the strand in IXL that where the place value problems would show up. And so what you see is the dark green part of the pie is students in grades 2 through 5 who are above grade level. The lighter green portion of the pie is students who are on grade level. The yellow is below and the red is far below. The issue always in these graphs is that gray area, because what happens is at any given time, our classes are at different points in taking the diagnostic, and if the students are in the middle of that test that they're taking, then their outcome is not pinpointed on our graph, or if they didn't finish it, or they were absent, something like that. So if I took the picture of the graph the next day, it would be a different number that's not pinpointed, and any day I would take it, it would be a little bit different. So what you can see though, so down below, you can see the second grade, third grade, fourth and fifth. So you can see how those are playing out. What we want to see and what we expect to see is when we do this again throughout the year, and the closer we get to the end of the year, that the green would start to take up more of that bar at each grade level, and the yellow and the red would shrink. That more of our students would be on grade level or above grade level, and fewer students would be below or far below.
Does this seem like a relatively, you say you do this every day, does this seem like a relatively average snippet?
Yeah, I don't look at this graph every day. What I'm saying is if any day I would take this, I would have some of those non-pinpointed, would be a different number, because it's dependent on where kids are in their, because they get on and they work at their own pace.
Okay.
And so, yes, this is very representative of where they are right now with, place value and number and operations, which is why we chose this area, because when you look at the bar, you can see that 50% or more, if you count the non-pinpointed, are not at grade level in this area. And so that's the reason why we chose this school.
Thank you.
So much of our intervention block time in math is geared toward working around place value and representing number in multiple ways. And that's why we're hoping that we will see a sharper turn in that graph as we move forward. So I wanted to share just a couple of strategies. There are many things that we do to help improve our students' understanding of place value and multiple strategies in math, but I'm going to just explain a couple of them to you. One is math talk strategies. So it's The advantage of math talk in class and why it's so important to have all students in our general education in math is so that they can hear each other talk about math. Because in order to be flexible in your understanding about math, you need to have multiple strategies. You need to understand number when it's represented in very different ways. And so one of the ways we do that is to have students either go up to the board, they might talk with their partner, they might be working in small group with the teacher, and they are explaining, how do you know your math is working? Why does it make sense? So if you look at that first problem that's up there, the 273,000 plus 591,000, one of the first things a student might say is, well, I know it's less than 900,000. Well, how do you know? That is a great start. How do you know it's less than 900,000? Because one is less than 300,000, one is less than 600,000. I know my answer is going to be less than 900,000. Students need to hear that kind of talk so that they can learn those strategies as well, so they know when their answer is making sense or not making sense, or they know they're in the right ballpark. When they are learning the formal algorithms, they are talking about carrying the 10 or carrying the 1,000 or carrying the 10,000 instead of the old language of carrying the 1. Because that doesn't bring meaning with it like it does if you have a 10 that you're moving on to the next column. So just things like that. So we give them some strategies for initiating math talk. We give them sentence starters, like, I know my answer makes sense because, or my answer is different than my partner's because, or my strategy is the same as theirs because. We give them strategies like that, and we leave some amount of time, we designate some time in our math lessons to make sure that we are engaging in math talk, because we really do believe that's how students learn from each other. This is an example of the maths. So this is a first grader who's little Cassandra there. This is a first grade level of how you represent number in multiple ways. So we call those math mountains in our math program, but you can see 5 is the sum at the top, and then there's 3 and 2, and they have little tumblers, they're rocks that are falling down. That's one way to represent 5. She's got equations over there that show 5. Other students might draw 5 hearts or something like that. That's how it begins in kindergarten and first grade. And then if you look at the mat on the right, that is probably a second grade level. And so they're starting to represent number on a number line using greater than, less than, comparing, and then the place value board, they're representing how many hundreds, tens, and ones. That continues to just evolve. So when I say we're using grade level maths to assess, this is what we're talking about. So every week our teachers are giving students a number and they're representing it as many ways as they can. At the older grade levels, they're actually giving them equations and they're representing the equation as many ways as they can. And that evolves into like arrays and to more complicated mathematical drawings. But that is one of the Common Core state standards of mathematical practice, is to be able to articulate your thinking through mathematical drawings, because it's one of the things that helps students in the upper level in math. Okay, did I make it my time? Did I go over? She's shrugging, that means I went over. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you for that. That was very informative.
Comment. I run Clouding College Aviation Professional Pilot Program. Common answer question was, what does my kid need or they have to ask themselves to be an airline pilot in math? And I said, well, they will probably have algebra because they have to have a college degree. But what they really need is 4th grade math understood very, very well.
Yes.
So that's important.
Yes.
And for all occupations, basically,
Yeah.
except the lowest ones.
Yes. Yeah. Anything else?
Thank you, Stacy. You might notice we don't have a shining star today. We don't do those in the middle of the school day because our shining stars are in class. So we will have Stacy back for the evening meeting, and the shining star will shine at that time.
Yeah. And then their family can come.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
All right, so we're going to transition to another board report. And while we have President Pike coming up for Church Creek campus, he actually is going to be getting his annual report to the board on all of our alternative learning experiences. So this is not Lincoln per se, it's all our ALE program on that campus.
All right. Is it on now? Okay. All right, well, thank you for having me here this afternoon. And like Dr. Rumbaugh said, I'm going to be talking about our alternative programs for our school district. So just like all of our schools, our ALE program also focus on our district promise that every student in the Stanwood-Camano School District is empowered to learn in an inclusive setting and is prepared for the future of their choice. Church Creek campus is comprised of 4 different programs. We have Lincoln Hill High School, which is our daily instruction. We have Lincoln Hill High Alternative Learning Experience, which is our remote program and ALE programs. We have Lincoln Academy, which is our middle school program. And we have Saratoga School, which is our parent partnership program, also an ALE program. So at Lincoln Hill High School, we have 2 teachers that are supporting the ALE work, but at 0.6 full-time equivalents. And so what that means is that we have 1 teacher that supports students in our ALE program 1 period a day, and we have 1 teacher that supports our ALE program 2 periods a day. At Saratoga School, which is our parent partnership program, we have 6 teachers supporting that program, but it makes up 5.2 FTE. And they're serving both as teachers and advisors to parents and students. So Lincoln Hill High School, some numbers here. Our enrollment numbers starting in October this year was 37 headcount. And our monthly average so far to date is 37.3. And the ALE ratio, student to teacher, is 63.2 to 1. That's because we have a 0.6 FTE. So that number might look a little funny. Saratoga started off this year in October at 231 students. And our monthly average to date is 225.5. And our ALE student to teacher ratio is 43.4 to 1. I would like to say that our enrollment continues to increase. We continue to get applications, and we are continually trying to place students into our ALE programs with the numbers that we have. So we are continuing to grow. ALE programs require that students have a written student learning plan. And whether you're at Lincoln Hill High School, ALE, or Saratoga, all students have to have a written student learning plan. And at Lincoln Hill High School, that plan is developed with the student and the teacher. They look at their courses that they've taken, their transcripts, what classes and courses they need to be on track for graduation, and make sure that they get those classes scheduled. And we also have that same requirement that any other high school would have with the high school and beyond plan. So the completion of that as well is a state requirement. At Saratoga School, it's a little different because we have kindergarten through 8th grade as well and up to 10th grade. So in that situation, our teachers work collaboratively with the parents and with student input to develop their written student learning plan to make sure that it's meeting the needs they need at their specific grade levels. Again, like I said, the parents are the primary instructor with the teachers being advisors. So they work really closely together. And the final approval though of the plan is approved by the teacher. A couple of the components for the evaluation of how students are progressing through our ALE programs. There's a couple of things we do. We do weekly check-ins to make sure students are making that adequate progress throughout the month. And so this is accomplished by either face-to-face interaction, Google Meets. So either students walk in for a brief meeting once a week to Lincoln Hill High School, or at Saratoga School, they may come for enrichment days and the teachers and advisors are able to meet with their students. Like I said, weekly enrichment classes for Saratoga there. Monthly progress is also reviewed, and this is an important process for our ALE programs. We need to make sure students are on track and on progress each month, and that's recorded and documented. And they meet with their certificated teacher, and the student learning schedules at that time may be accelerated if a student's really making fast progress in their work. We don't want to hold them back. We want to adjust. If they're doing really well and maintaining the right course, we maintain, or if we need to modify it so that the student can be more successful, we'll do that as well. And students still access state and local assessments, so they still take the Smarter Balance assessments. Our alternative learning experience programs, we make sure that the goals for academic achievement are there. So we focus on standards and grade level expectations. Our coursework that we have for Lincoln Hill High School is through Edgenuity, and it's aligned with our state standards. And our Saratoga curriculums are also aligned with state standards. We provide learning options for students. We offer high quality courses. We provide an alternative route to their education. Students appreciate that sometimes. Maybe the traditional learning experiences are not what they thrive in. And then we keep students engaged in schooling and on a path towards graduation. We self-assess our program annually through our school improvement processes. We also work collaboratively with Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. We collaborate with regional ALE schools and state partners, and we continue to focus on core subject areas. Of course, parent and student feedback is very helpful throughout that process as well to make sure that we're meeting their needs. Any questions you might have?
On the loss in enrollment at Saratoga, I think it was fairly minimal, but do we track that to know if they stayed in district or if they went out of district?
Yeah, so a lot of times for Saratoga, they'll jump back into a traditional school. Rarely, but sometimes they might actually do full homes, like apply for homeschooling. But a lot of times they'll jump back into our school system. Some of our Saratoga students also take classes maybe at the high school and do Saratoga too. So there's sometimes that combination.
Okay, and then one last one on the parent and stakeholder feedback, like how do you solicit that? Is it like surveys or?
Yeah, so a lot of times like an example would be at Saratoga, because the parents are those primary teachers. We want to know, what do you need support with and what do you need help with? And so based on that information, there'll be classes offered by teachers so that parents can come in and actually get supported how to teach reading to their students or whatever they might be focusing on at that time based off of the survey results.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ryan,
Yes.
can you tell me what the core subject areas are?
Math, reading, social studies, history, science, those kinds of courses. And then the electives would be like PE. So there's different elective course offerings in Edgenuity that students can choose from, maybe career choices and different things of that nature.
Thanks.
Yes.
At the state board annual meeting, there was a session on all various options for graduation requirements. So in a bunch of different paths, which were very different for me in 1962. And so how's that fit Saratoga and the other ALEs in particular, where they choose a particular path early in their education and modifies what they do?
Yeah, so Saratoga goes up to 10th grade. So we're not actually graduating students from Saratoga. And so a lot of times those conversations are being held and had with the students. Maybe they're taking some courses next door at Stanwood High School as well. If it's a CTE pathway, for instance, our students in our remote programs at Lincoln Hill High School as well can take courses at Stanwood High School if needed. A lot of times our students in our remote program at Lincoln Hill High School are coming to us maybe in their 11th and 12th grade years, so they maybe already have some of those pathways, but they're open and options for them as well in our program. So they're not limited to just Lincoln Hill High School ALE.
Great, thank you, I appreciate that. We look forward to hearing your typical report for us later this year.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. We have one more. We're staffing the most of it today, but the board has also requested a couple times a year updates from our teaching and learning department. And so this is our winter update. And Dr. Gagnon will lead us through that with the team.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you. So I want to start off with our promise. And the update really is around where we are with our literacy adoptions. And what I really want to say is that the first two words there, every student. You can't go through a really high profile adoption without impacting all of our elementary kids and all of our ELA middle school students. So it really is captured all of our students at that level. Here today with Dr. Ryan, who'll tag team with me on this one. And first would like to also formally welcome Director King, Director Foster. My team and I are very excited to work with you. It also gives us an opportunity to go through parts of our strategic plan as we drill down more into this. We wanted to talk about the 4 pillars. And why we want to focus on the pillar is we wanted to share the intentionality of the work on how the adoption fits with our pillars. So that said, when you think of the first pillar, teaching and learning, it's really built on access to standards instruction. And when we adopted Amplified elementary schools, Hood, Mifflin, Harcourt, which I'll call now H&H, at our middle schools, it provided access to all of our students. Our last literacy adoption was pre-2011. So we had an opportunity with this to really align our instructional practices, our common languages, and it really fits into that first line of pillar number 1. Oh,
Hello there. Like Dr. Grant is saying, we're committed to support all of our staff as we're implementing new curriculum as it indicates a change in practice. And so we're doing that through a structure where a consultant from the group, so in the K-5 example, a consultant from Amplify is actually going to each school to spend a day of professional development with our teachers, with our support staff, getting a lot of folks together that impact the reading program, and as well as district leaders, because it's an opportunity for us to all learn together. And this engagement structure is in direct support of pillar 3.
Thank you. Honestly, this is my favorite pillar. As you heard Dr. Ryan say, once a month, and it is pretty robust, to go ahead, as Dr. Ryan said, to have our entire literacy teachers at middle school and all of our teachers at K-5. It is such a huge task, and that doesn't go without really strategic thinking with especially our HR department. So kudos to Christina Pozo and her team, the office managers in the school, and the gymnastics it takes for our principals to organize these things. But what comes out of this is you can see the developing of capabilities. We know that we were not going to be able to sustain this over years. So the idea is to build the capacity of our teachers, our principals, so as year 2 comes, they can provide the teaching, they can provide the induction needed, and the continued learning through Amplify or HMH. So really strategic thinking in the developing of capabilities.
And with that learning with consultants comes data. So along with our K-5 adoption, as well as our 6-8 adoption, we're looking at sets of quantitative data, numbers and percentages, as well as qualitative data, which includes more stories, some reflections, some feedback about what's going on with the learning. So here's an example. Here's a quantitative example. At an elementary, each column represents a grade level K-5. And each color represents where they're at in terms of standard per this assessment. So the red indicates well below, yellow is below, green is at, and blue is above. And so we do this assessment process 3 times a year, beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year. And as we get this, we can drill down to how each student has done. So it gives us a look at how we can support schools looking at this reading data. It gives principals support to help progress monitor what kind of supports a specific grade band might need and those kids might need. It's just been, this process now, we're analyzing the data, learning what the data tells us, as well as acting on the data and using it. Yes.
Sorry about that kindergarten, all the red, can you, and you mentioned it's measured 3 times a year,
Right.
so what would that be, mid-year?
No, we would expect as kids enter kindergarten, that they would not yet be reading where we want them to be. As they enter kindergarten, we remediate that.
So that would be the beginning of that school year, not the
Yeah.
end of it.
Correct.
And this program is very explicit and it's a touch different in a really strategic way to help our kindergartners understand the sounds that letters make as well as know the letter names. So when they're coming in, because kindergarten kids come in sometimes and know the alphabet right away, can sing the alphabet song, but they might not know the specific sounds that they make. So we look at that data and then we figure out, like your point, 38 kids in that case, we would want to wrap our arms around those kids and how can we support those teachers to get them in that yellow, green, blue area. And then in terms of some qualitative data we're looking at, this is just 2 samples of teacher feedback. We're getting feedback from staff along the way about how the professional development is going. Teachers have really appreciated having a consultant there to help them guide them through new materials. Because it's one thing just to get materials and looking at it, but for teachers to have access to a consultant with questions about how you can strategically use these resources to leverage them for their kids has been really appreciated.
That's true. Thank you. And maybe just one more point on terms of the feedback. I mean, yeah, it'd be foolish for us to get any kind of feedback, whether it's quantitative or qualitative, and not act on this. So just hovering in the feedback from our teachers, you know, we use this to pivot in ways that met our teachers' needs. So, you know, there was a time when we really needed to get into the curriculum, opening up the book, learning how to get in and out of it. Here's where I find something. Oh, I don't have to ask this many questions. I can ask 4. Very technical pieces. As the year has progressed, we have moved into pedagogy. So you start seeing and hearing things around small group instruction. We, in the last session, focused on model lessons, where now we're opening up practices and less around the technical pieces, becoming more adaptive in their instruction. And again, just wanted to make sure we kind of gave our understanding of how the pillars align to our literacy adoption, both at elementary and middle. And with that, we are open for any questions you might have for us.
Can you specifically define what means well below?
Yeah, take that one.
Like what's the cutoff, I guess, for below?
So we use that readout is with the DIBELS and dynamic indicators, basic early literacy skills. I often use my cheat sheet with me, but for kids that are well below, so depending on where for that sample that Director King brought up with kindergarten, in that case, kids would be struggling with like beginning sounds. What the cutoff is, the cutoff can kind of indicate it'd be different at the beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year. But the 38 would tell us in that case that we need to figure out what Dr. Guyan pointed out, we need to figure out some small group structures that will intervene and accelerate learning for those kids. But 13 could mean, the yellow could mean just a touch below grade level. So there's different ways to use the data in terms of the cutoff. The cutoff is different per grade level, per benchmark period.
And it does move with the students sort of throughout the year, what they should know at the end of the year
Right.
versus what they should know at the beginning of the year.
There's, if you drill down on a student, it's depending on where they're at in the beginning of the year. So if you're one of the kids that are in the red that need more intervention, your growth trajectory might be a touch longer, but there is like a layout for us to kind of go, how much do we have to accelerate learning for these students to get them hopefully at yellow, hopefully at green, and ultimately at blue, because all of this is in service. We want kids to do well on assessments, but we really just want them to love to read and write.
The one thing I might take or add on that one is, and I'll use, a fourth, fifth grade example, is one caught up, and a lot of this is based off of reading fluency. And that number might be X amount of words per minute. So if a student is already hitting that mark, and I want to say it might be under 12, I could be wrong. But if they are already meeting it, they might be at a blue.
Okay.
If they're at a 109, they might be for sure be in yellow. But if they are reading 20 words a minute, that would indicate a red. And so those numbers are disaggregated with where your kids are. So at the school level, you really will have it with a name of a child and where they are. At the K-1-2 level, in there is what's the cutoff for a student and their letter naming fluency. How are they reading phoneme segmentation? There's a whole battery of that, but we can get the cutoffs for you.
No, I just was curious, sort of the general idea that,
Yeah.
you know, well below. Right?
And I think it really leads to the strategic interventions that happen for the students, absolutely.
Thank you.
It would be nice if they're all up into the blue.
That's
And I assume that being below that, there would be a variety of causes, including their home situation and lots of what's being done to try to get at that for these students and then develop different interventions for different issues.
Absolutely, and I think you heard that with Principal Lawenger's presentation, how they use that data for her strategic intervention blocks, because every student might need a different type of intervention. Kindergarten is a great example. Sometimes it's just time. They might not have had a preschool experience. So, you know, it's, but what they specifically need is what that data is driving for the intervention.
All right, thank you. The only other piece I would add on, really, with slide 7 is, over time, as we use these new materials, we would also be looking at what is retained when we look at K versus 1. So we would hope that the red and the yellow would continue to go down over time, and that our first graders would look similar to our kindergartners at the start of the next year. And so that's something that we'll be keeping an eye on and updating the board on as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, the last item on the superintendent's report is our December financial report. Ruth is with us to do that. I'm guessing you did not get called for jury duty? I did not. Here today, so I can find out tomorrow.
Yes, I call back next week, so we shall see. All right, good afternoon. I wanted to first, the first page spoke about our promise to students. And I just want to highlight how the work of business services, we really want to gear our resources so that the good work of the people that you heard from earlier today could really move forward, so that our resources are going in those areas that will help our students and empower them to learn. For December, financials are, it's the 4th month of the fiscal year, so we're 1/3 complete. Our enrollment FTE was 4,646 FTE. That is 17 under budget overall, and but higher than last year this time. Our state apportionment revenues were paid at 9%. Payroll costs as a percent of budget through December were about what they were this time last year at 33%. And then our materials, supplies, and operating costs, or MSOCs, are about 25% spent. And then on the manager's report, it reflects 12% remaining after expenditures and encumbrances. This is a bit lower percent remaining than last year about this time. And then fund balance, December general fund balance is at 7.6 million. It is 300,000 lower than last month, but that is a typical decline for this time of year. Because as the year goes on, we have fewer tax dollars coming in until that the spring collections come through. And then on our object summary, the general fund expenditures, we break our expenditures down in multiple ways, and object is one of them. You can see
that salaries are broken down by cert and classified, as well as employee benefits and payroll taxes. And then we have the MSOCs, which are the supplies, purchase services, travel, and other non-salary costs. And then we also present to you budget status reports for all of our 5 budgeted funds. And general fund, we already discussed, it had the $7.6 million fund balance at the end of December. And for capital projects, is flat, about flat compared to last month. Debt service fund on page 9 reflects tax collections as well as bond, large payment for our principal and interest on our bonds. So we pay for principal and interest in December, and then we do an interest-only payment in June. And then ASB fund decreased about 18,000, and it's sitting at about 620,000 at the end of December. And then transportation vehicle fund, you can see there that we paid almost $500,000, and that was for 3 large school buses that we've talked about before. And then budget capacity, there were some internal transfers made in December, including special education increases for some additional resources that we provided to that program. A portion of this, though, is offset by some revenues we're receiving from another school district through an interlocal agreement. And then on our food services report, it shows revenues and expenditures for December. The net loss is more favorable than what we expected at budget time. It's a little bit behind though last year this time. And then our average daily participation is looking better than budget and is also an increase over last year as well. So that's good. That's all I have for you for December. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
You have families, still have opinions. Yes. All right, that means you do this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rumble and staff. It's time for the consent agenda. Members, are there any items on the consent agenda that you would like to pull and discuss?
I would like to pull, revised policy number 4 off of there, table that. Revised policy called 20, I want to discuss later.
Right, item number 4.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other items? Okay, at this time, anyone in the audience may speak to an item specific to the consent agenda here. Any of these items you'd like to talk about? We'll have a general public comment a little bit later, but this is for these items here. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda item 1 through 3 and 5 through 14?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Director Evans, seconded by Director Foster. All those in favor of the motion to approve 1 through 3 and 5 through 14, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Those are approved unanimously. And we will item number 4, revised policy about 20 board officers and duties of board members. Discussion on that?
We're gonna discuss that right now?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. I think originally that legislative, go to the board, look at it that way, the policy. Originally, the legislative rep was a 2-year position, and I think it needs to remain a 2-year position since it takes, I don't know, I learned a lot last week in Olympia, but I'm assuming you need at least 1 year to figure it out, another year to get something done, and I think 1 year is not enough time for that.
No other comments, discussion?
I don't know that I have a preference one way or the other. I agree that it probably is a significant learning curve there to do that. I think historically, and everybody who knows me knows that that's the way we've always done it, is my least favorite answer for everything. But I will say historically, I don't know that we've selected a new legislative rep every year, for that exact reason.
Every 2 years.
Yeah, so, but I don't know that, that we've done that because it is like, I think even for a while, even though it said 2 years, we were still voting on it more frequently than that. I don't know, yeah, I actually don't have a preference one way or the other on that.
Well, that's promising.
Yeah.
I think it's a complicated job and I'd like to know the reason why 1 year would suffice. But like someone in favor of this shortening that term, what's the benefit?
That was actually my suggestion, that we bring it in line with the president, vice president, and the WIAA, the other positions that, and they would be aware of it.
Because all those others are 1 year. Well, I just think this position is more complicated and you should have a chance to actually make an impact. Get to know. I'm just saying. It should be a 2 year term, in my opinion. To be reasonable,
Other comments?
I would comment that, this would probably be a discussion that, Director Murray would love to be part of, and perhaps tabling it for, a meeting where she could also be present and be part of that discussion would probably be appropriate
Okay.
as our current legislative rep.
Who's the current legislative rep?
Well, we don't have one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was 2 year term.
Yeah.
The last,
December.
no one.
So do we have consensus that we want to hold this and take it up at the next meeting? Discuss it at that point.
I do.
Okay. If we have consensus, we will hold off on consensus.
Can I make a note for the record? It appears to me when I read the memo that we have attached policy 1210 to a memo noting 1220. If I'm reading this correctly. So when I click on item 4,
It says 1220.
it says 1220 in the agenda, but if you scroll down, what we're looking at is 1210. So although I'm not a voting member of the board, I would say that this error might be a reason.
So 1210, is also, number, like approval of second reading number 3. So perhaps you would, because that also says, that actually says 1210. So I don't know if you would want to pull both of those until we can figure that out.
I think I could recommend pushing both to a third reading. But I don't get to vote on that, so I'm just.
I just see if that actually has 1210 attached to it, item number 3 says policy 1210. And then item number 4 says revised policy 1220. When you click on it, it says 1210. So perhaps.
Related but different.
I second it.
So maybe we restate the motion for the record.
Well, we've already agreed, so the motion would be to move policy 1220 to a third reading.
I move to do that.
Moved by Director Foster, seconded by Director Evans. All in favor of moving 1210 and 1220 to a third reading, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so those two policies, we will move on to a third reading at the next meeting. Okay, and that is the end of the consent agenda. Moving on to public comment. The board recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of involving members of the public in its meeting. This time is set aside for members of the public to address the board on any topic within the scope of the board's responsibility. The board does not respond to questions or comments during the public comment period. The board's silence does not signal agreement or endorsement of the speaker's comments. Because it's not on the agenda, we can discuss it and take any action on it at this point. So, Secretary, do we have comments? Okay. First one was Leslie, and what was your last name?
It's Gary.
Gary. Thank you. You have 3 minutes on our light here.
I won't take that
The
one.
yellow will give you a 1 minute warning before it turns red.
Great. Nervous. I just wanted to be on public record. The question I have, I know we're not gonna get answers today, which is fine, is about Charlotte Murray. And the question I have is that she's the vice president, and I'm just, looking to understand. She's the vice president of the school board. And she's also a labor union negotiator, as I understand it. And I want to understand, is that not a conflict of interest? Her LinkedIn says that she's the secretary treasurer of Snohomish Island County Labor Council. So is the position on the Labor Council conflicting with the position on the board? When you're making decisions, so my background is the securities industry, we would call that potentially insider information. If you have information on something and you're making decisions on something else, is that a conflict of interest? So I just want to pose the question. I don't expect answers. I don't know how this whole process works, but I'm wondering when she negotiates, is she negotiating for the teachers when she's on the council? So I just, full disclosure, I hope that this question, I don't know, what is the process? I've presented a question, then what happens with my question?
Thank you. We cannot discuss it or decide.
Right, no, but so what's the next step, I guess, is the question I have. What's the next step on a question that has been proposed by the public?
Typically, board president would ask me to respond to you, so that's that I would give you a call.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is Tanya Booth here? You have to remember to find.
How long have we got to talk? Got a few things I want to say. First, I met Mr. Bill Heater, who is in charge of ROTC classes at Arlington Marysville, I believe. Anyway, I think that would be a very important and prestigious and life-building class for us to recommend and see if we can implement ROTC class. Because it makes good human beings, and it makes good sense to me. And also, I was looking at the voters pamphlet for the levy, and I was kind of put back a little bit by the fact that it said that 90% of the school's fundings go to salaries. I think 90% is pretty high for the money that goes. Should be for the children. I don't know how that breaks down after you get to 20,000 per child. But I think that's probably more than I make a year. And I don't know where you're standing at DEI and the alphabet descriptions. I just think the new age thing is not what should be taught. I think love and how the love of America and striving to be good, honorable, future independent, loyal, hardworking, great Americans. I think we need to start teaching the way we used to teach 50 years ago. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which I stand, and I love my country, and I will try to be a good American citizen and a good cooperative individual as far as life is concerned. I don't think we've been teaching goodness as far as being an American and how honorable it is to be from America. We have hundreds and thousands of people crossing our borders from every country in the world. to be here. And, I don't think we, as Americans, have lost that feeling. And also, I drive around Stanwood and I see, I don't know, I'm not too good at estimating this, but I would say at least 300 or 400 signs out there for yes on the levy, yes on the levy, not one on no, not one on the no. And everything in our lives is blowing up. Our gas, our electric bills, our vet bills, our car bills, our insurance bills, our maintenance bills for homes, our water bill, our food bill, every single thing. But I'm on Social Security, and my neighborhood is full of people on Social Security, and we don't get raises like that. We are failing. And, I mean, you could actually tax us out of our homes. And it just seems like every 4 years, when you want more and more and more and more and more, I think you need to think about the people. Biden doesn't think about the people. The state legislature doesn't think about the people. The schools don't think about the people. They say it's all for the kids, it's all for the kids. But I actually know, that 90% of the money that the schools get goes to salaries is a quite sufficient amount of money. And also I think, we need to start going back to teaching America and the greatness of it. The other countries in the world have not this greatness. And we don't teach our greatness so that our kids feel like, wow, I'm really privileged to be born in America. And I just think that we need to teach that too. And my dad always said back in the day, it's important. My dad was 88 when he passed away in 2012, and he knew back then that if moms stayed home and took care of their homes and their children, instead of going to work every day and giving them to whoever could take care of them, made a big difference in life and the world and the outcome of everybody's happiness and goodness.
Thank you, Diane.
Okay.
And we are available afterwards. Thank you. Comments from the public, students, staff, parents. And that was all the comments we had. So we will move on down to scheduled for school board discussion. First reading of policy 5010, non-discrimination and affirmative action. And the first reading of policy 55, professional, civic, and service organizations. Any comments on those? Or we'll put those on to the second reading. Second reading, and we have our book study on chapter 5 here, and we start.
Perfect, thank you. So we always kind of like to remind you, the reason that we're doing the book study is our school principals are studying this same book as well. So it made sense for our board members to be looped in. We are on chapter 5, and this particular chapter helps our schools, both our teachers and our leaders, think about how do we support students when kids' brains get in the way. And we talked about this before, but imagine having a challenging math problem in front of you and the way that we might feel about that. The stress level goes up. How do teachers support students sort of when their brains kind of get in that mode and they may start thinking, I can't do it, I can't do it. How do we support students in that? So that's kind of the synopsis of the chapter. For a protocol, this afternoon, we could use an I notice statement, something from the chapter that you noticed, and it could certainly be anything that you would like to note. And I'll turn it over to Al.
Okay, and directors, we start with Director King at the end.
Yeah, and that chapter got to me personally, not just because I failed a little test, but there was an example about where I jumped to the conclusion that there were 85% of the test takers actually did. And I pride myself on being analytical, my personality and aptitude. I'm an accountant, an engineer, scientist, and a lawyer. I messed that up. So whoops. And then on the levy, I didn't vote for the last one, even though my good friend was all for it, because I misunderstood the impact of property taxes. I thought that with my property taxes having gone up 35% in 3 years, that should be plenty for the schools, not understanding that that didn't increase the funding to the schools.
Director Paulson.
I'll pass.
Director,
I think I'll pass today.
Director Evans.
Okay. I think, one of the things that I noticed is that, unwillingness to make yourself vulnerable in front of others, right? That culture of niceness and not wanting to show your strength and all of those things. You don't want to correct somebody, because you're trying to be polite or nice. In my house, we definitely focus on kind versus nice. I tell my children, you don't have to be nice, but you do have to be kind. And sometimes redirecting is kind, even if it's not nice, right? And I think that is, to me, that was important in this chapter, that it is okay to be vulnerable, and it is okay to maybe say something as long as you do it kindly. I think that was important to me.
I find myself not. Other possibilities out there, because I just want to kind of confirm my, not really challenge. I have to work on learning all sides of that. It's difficult to show our vulnerability and our weaknesses there too. And I do have something to.
Mistakes are okay, as long as you learn from them, right? Like, that's the important thing, learning from them.
Director Schreiber, one of the things that stood out to me on page 61 that I think I'm guilty of is this paragraph on we consider ourselves to be the exceptions. Surely I'm fine, it's everyone else. That's not, so it was really just a good reminder. It says most people are guilty of this pattern of thinking because we're human beings. And so it's just nice to be reminded to kind of have an open mind and maybe not be so stuck in, what I think might be the way and the only way.
All right, thank you. We will continue our book study there. And we're going to move on to our student advisory reports on school business. So whoever wants to go first, be your grace.
Hi, I'm Bea Hartel, and I'm the Lincoln Hill student advisor. And last week, the leadership team set up Valentine's Day decorations and ads for our Sweet Notes fundraiser. Team leadership students accompanied by our leadership teacher will sell papergrams to any student or staff for only $1. The fundraiser started today, the 6th, and will run until the 12th. We have 3 options for the designs of the cards, all made by Nicole Jacobson, our leadership team, very fantastic artist. Once bought, the buyer has a choice to write a small note to the recipient, and it will be handed out during the period on Valentine's Day. And today, for our first day, we got 10 cards sold, 5 cards during the morning, and then 5 during lunch. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Grace Pacheco, representative from Stanwood High School, and here's my report on what we've been working on as an ASB. This past January, we have been working on various different activities and events, such as our annual MLK assembly with help from our equity club, which ran smoothly and effectively. Guest speakers Sarah Trethaway and Jean Kelly, both from Stanwood's English department, as well as students Alejandro Plato, Ivan Haglin, and myself. We ran an after basketball game social that was very fun and had a lot of spirit. Last Friday, February 2nd, we had a Groundhog's Day pep rally in honor of early spring. During this gathering, the student body participated in watching ASB perform a skit, the staff versus student volleyball game, and an airplane toss at the end made out of like old homework. So they just did it. It was cool. On Valentine's Day, jazz choir will be singing Valentine's Day to our student body of those people who brought them. Coming up later this month, we will be having a big dance of Under the Northern Lights on February 24th, and tickets will go on sale on February 15th. We're also planning an event called Thriftwood, which will be a thrift store run off of student donations. In class today, we broke up into committees, including activity spirit, assembly, campus culture, club/sports spirit, and advertising. This is to help improve our advertising, school spirit, all that. We're also attempting to plan a Spartan Olympics, which includes a bunch of activities representing different sports clubs and clubs around the school later in the spring. Something to keep in the back of that we're keeping in the back of our heads is that we have executive elections that will be the third week of March. And that's basically it. If there's not any questions, that's the conclusion of my report.
Thank you, supervisors. We're down to board director reports on business conducted. So Director King.
Yeah, I think I was part of a levy in listening session at my church. And Director Rumba and Kevin and Ryan, no, yeah, you were there, were that, and actually 2 weeks before that, his church, 2 weeks before that, talking with the pastor at the same breakfast, he was hostile to levy because of misunderstanding exactly the same point that I misunderstood. Also was sort of special that there were two of those present. One was a former teacher, the other was a former school board member from another district, and they had lots of good questions.
Director Foster.
All right, I had the pleasure of going to Olympia a week ago, and while I was there, it's called A Day on the Hill. And I met and spoke with Representative Sam Lowe, Representative Carolyn Eslick, State Senator Keith Wagner, and Ruth Peterson, who is the ex-assistant to Senator John Braun. And we were promoting, when we spoke with these officials, House Bill 1044. I can let you know what it is if you want. House Bill 2017. And we're all for those. We're not in favor of the WASDA supports its HB 2212. We're not in favor of that. We are good with, this is what we expressed to them in our 15 minutes allowed. Good with Senate Bill 58 HB 1960, phasing in over 3 years, additional staffing allocations for teaching assistants, office support staff, and non-instructional aides. And I forgot to mention a week before that I had also the honor of going to the food bank where the Northwest Credit Union had collected $7,500. And I went down to the food bank and we took a tour, and they had no idea when the gal gave her the money, I cried. The register people cried, so it was really nice.
And that was our Stanwood-Camano.
It was wonderful, and I'm actually having lunch with him, maybe Ryan, whoever, to see if we're all on the same page and we can help. This baby don't cry. Okay. Okay.
Director Evans.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to go to our CPAC meeting. Those are always exciting for me to hear the feedback directly from the community, sort of where we're at, what is important to them in terms of, you know, our future plans for our facilities and long-term maintenance and things like that. After that presentation in our last meeting, we kind of took some of that information back to the CPAC, and it was I don't know, I thought it was a really great discussion on where we should go and all of that. So probably more to come from Mr. Avenel on that. Had the really great opportunity of attending a ton of sports events recently. Our sports are amazing, so I always enjoy those. And then quite a few levy listening sessions out in our community. So if you still have questions, you still have concerns, there are still events available. Remember to vote next week. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. And for more information on the levy, they have recorded some of those levy listening sessions. And there's good material presented there. I heard that one. And a lot of questions from the public that we probably have too. So I participated in a number of those levy listening sessions too, and my neck of the woods. We tend to use a lot of acronyms around here, so I just want to clarify, when we talk about CFAC, that's the Community Facilities Advisory Committee, where we, and it's open to the public. You get input from the community on our facilities and our future planning when we grow in that. And CFAC is the other one, the new one, which is our Citizens Budget Advisory. I think those are published on the website and public and for information from it. See a lot of support there. Number of excited. I've done a number of sports events too, and we're kind of getting into that time period where our teams are going on to district and state, so I want to wish them well there. No comments? Okay, then with that, at 2:21, we are adjourned.